I feel that this is a very, very important message that we're going to be talking about this morning. And this is one of the foundational principles for success in your practice, and not just your practice, but your entire life. If you can start to grasp these principles of what we're talking about this morning and apply them to different areas of your life, it changes who you are and it changes the results that you start to get. I left a Marco the other day. We're going to be talking about self-programming for success. So I left that Marco the other day about the computer systems. And I remember back when computers first came in, and even our practice, when we opened up our practice in 1993, we were the first practice in Brantford to have a computer system. And I knew all the chiropractors in Brantford, and they were all on just manual ledgers and files or travel cards and things. So we had a computer system. We still use travel cards for our patients, but our patient management system, our calendar, and our accounts was all on a computer. And it was the first computer we had. But we had those 5.25-inch floppy disks. And we used to, and back at that time, there was OHIP coverage. And we would have to insert the disk and record all the files, for OHIP. And then we had a courier come around who would pick up the disk and then take it to the Ministry of Health so then they could read the files and apply the OHIP payments to those files. So every month we would get the OHIP payments, and our copay at that time was only $14. So people were paying $14. We get $9.65 from OHIP. Well, that, I think it was in 2004, went away. They took it all away from chiropractors, which I feel was the best thing that ever happened. But I remember having the computer and having always to upgrade the operating system. And back then, it was a case of taking all these new floppy disks and having to insert them into the computer. You'd first have to delete the old files and then insert the disks into the new files and wait for those new disks to copy all that information, all those files into the computer. And sometimes we'd set it up at night and go home, put the disk in, and then by the time we got back in the morning, it would have loaded up. But it was interesting because when we would get new software, if we had not upgraded the computer system, the new software wouldn't work. So you'd have to scramble around to get the new operating system functioning in your computer so that software would work. You guys know that now in your phones, or if you have a laptop computer, especially if it's an Apple laptop, they're constantly upgrading the operating system so that you get a new maybe it's Sonoma or, whichever the new operating system is on the Mac computer. You have to upgrade that. Or on your phone, it's now iPhone 15.1 or whatever operating system they're at now, but they constantly change it. But the thing is that if you have an old app, or if you want to get a new app, it's not going to work on the old operating system. You have to change the operating system. So this is really relevant to the way that we function. And especially in our profession in chiropractic, this is really important stuff. So let's talk about this. So let's just say we have a success operating system and we also have a failure operating system. So here's some principles that we talk about in our success operating system. And if you have a success operating system, typically you will act with a high level of discipline. You'll have tremendous self-discipline to make yourself do the hard things that most people don't want to do. And in fact, you might not even want to do them, but you make yourself do them anyway, whether that's eating well, whether that's getting up early in the morning, whether that's a regular exercise routine that you just absolutely stick to. It's these things of self-discipline that work well in this success operating system. You're very coachable. You can take advice from a coach or a mentor and without questioning it, implement it on a certain level, even if it doesn't resonate with your current level of thinking. Successful people are able to do that and do things without question. It's almost, we used to call it the ready, fire, aim approach. You would just pull the trigger before you started thinking it and then refine it after the fact. You always had a big vision. If you're a successful person, if you're working in a successful operating system, you have a big vision. You have tremendous focus as well. You can focus on the task at hand without being distracted by all these distractive types of things. You have an attitude of service. And that attitude is constantly serving others. It's a level of selflessness. You have a strong moral character. You're adaptable. You can adapt to change. You can adapt to hurdles and speed bumps and all kinds of problems that are going to happen. They just happen, but you're able to adapt, and you can either overcome them, you can go around them, you can circumvent them on some level. You have great leadership skills. You're able to fill other people up with your thinking, with your vision, and lead them into better success for themselves. You have a level of optimism. You have a high level of energy and a level of optimism. These are all principles of the success operating system. Well, on the other hand, there's the failure operating system. And what happens if you're in a failure operating system? You work with a level of pessimism. You might be negative towards a lot of things that are thrown your way. You have a high level of distraction. You get distracted by all kinds of things that are robbing you of your energy and your mental bandwidth. There's a level of laziness. There's a distorted perception of truth. And this is a really important thing, because there's something that we believe to be true, and there is truth. And they're two different things. So truth is different many times than what we believe to be true, because a lot of times in our mind, and people do this regularly, is that we believe something to be true because we believe it. And we're unwilling to look into all of the other options that may show us that this item or this thing or this concept is the actual truth, because we have a different belief system. And that's really important. There was a saying that I read recently that said, I'd rather have questions that I cannot answer as opposed to answers that I cannot question. And I mean, we went through these many years of this pandemic, and there were a lot of answers that nobody was allowed to question, and these rules that were made that nobody was allowed to challenge. And so there's a level of truth, and there's things that we believe to be true, and they're not always necessarily on the same plane. So those things, it's that this distorted perception of truth, are in the failure operating system. The lack of discipline, the uncommitment to something that needs to be done, a level of dishonesty, a lack of integrity, saying things that you're going to do and not doing them, or doing things that you say you're not going to do and doing them anyway. It's a level of uncoachability, and it's a level of unadaptability. So there's the success principles and there's the failure principles. They're two different operating systems. Now, here's the thing. If you're the type of person that lives in a success level and follows those success principles, you can have a software, for lack of a better term, you can have a software of failure put into your life. And the fact is, it's not going to work. For some reason, the person that lives in these success principles will figure out a way to make the failure software become successful. And on the other hand, the person that's operating in the failure operating system could have a level of success come their way, and they would figure out a way to mess it up. They would figure out a way to fail at something that has been shown to be successful, just because of these principles that exist. So it's really important for us to recognize where we're at and which one of these principles is keeping us from either recognizing success or obtaining success in our life, or constantly finding a level of failure in our life, and start applying that to our everyday systems. That's the operating system that we live in. So it's really important to start putting these success stimuli into your life on every level. So that's going to bring us to the 4 levels of vision. So if we can take that operating system and say, okay, let's take these principles and put it into the 4 levels of vision. Well, keep in mind, everything in your life starts with a vision. Everything, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a hobby, whether it's your business, your practice, whether it's raising your children, there has to be a vision of where you're going. When we start doing things without knowing really where we're going, we end up going in circles. We end up going in a different direction than what's going to get us the results that we want to get. So everything starts with vision. You can't plan anything without vision. Stephen Covey, if you ever read the book by Stephen Covey, that was titled Start with the End in Mind, very, very famous book. I actually had the audio series on cassette. I used to listen to it in my car years ago. He always talked about having that big vision and and figuring out where the end goal was, which direction are you going? So having your big vision. And then the path and the how will always be revealed to you, but you can't accomplish anything without the big vision. So have you defined, and here's the big thing. So the question for you guys today is, have you defined your vision clearly? And let's apply it just to chiropractic, just to your practice. Do you have a vision for what you are delivering in your office? And I'm going to say that if it's just a case of you going in to quote unquote treat patients, and I don't like that term, treat patients, but if it's just you going in to adjust or care for your patients and make money, there's something missing. And that is a very unsustainable vision. There's really not much vision there, and it will not lead to a really successful practice. However you determine success, whether that's seeing a lot of people, whether that's making a great income, whether that's affecting and transforming lives, if that's the level of your vision, it's going to be very, very limited. So it's trying to define that vision in your mind, having it very clear, and making sure that everybody around you knows it. And I'm going to say, so over years, we really tried to define the vision, and it became to the fact that it wasn't about chiropractic at all. It was about transforming lives. I wanted people to understand the principle of chiropractic so much that it wasn't about seeing as many people. It wasn't about adjusting as many people, laying my hands on people. It wasn't about making money. It was about my mission in my life, not just in my practice, was to help people to understand the principle of chiropractic. And really, when I say the principle of chiropractic, I meant the major premise that there is a universal intelligence, and that universal intelligence gives its actions and properties to all matter, constantly giving to it its actions and properties, thus maintaining it in existence. And I wanted people to really understand that and understand what that meant. And so that vision resonated in the practice, that vision resonated in my doctor's report, that vision resonated in everything. I went and coached hockey, and I would share those types of principles with the kids, that they had all of the ability inside them to be great hockey players. It's just sharing that vision. So I made that a purpose of my life, is to share that vision with everybody. And that really outlined all the success, because everything else fell into that. If it was in line with sharing the vision with people, then we could figure out a way to do it. And typically it would be successful. So what I would say is, and here's the challenge for today, is outline your vision, and outline it so well and so clearly that you'd be proud to create a sign and put it up on the wall in your office, so that everybody knew what the big vision was when they walked into your practice. So here's 4 levels of vision. And I think this will really, again, resonate with all of you. When you talk about 4 levels of vision, or 4 levels of business vision, and we can apply this to chiropractic, 4 levels of chiropractic vision, the lowest level is what we call transactional vision. Okay. Transactional is really, you have a practice because you've created a job for yourself to make money. And that's really what it comes down to. The goal is to get them to pay me, right? People come in and the goal is to get them to pay me. What happens is we end up making deals. We go back to that failure operating system, and we start compromising on our principles, and we start compromising on our integrity. That's when we say, okay, we have a plan. We look at this patient's x-rays. We look at their examination findings, and we know, because of our experience and our training, we know that person needs 3 times a week for 12 weeks or whatever the case is. And then in our conversation with the person, we end up backing down, we compromise, we want them so badly to sign on for care, we compromise our principles, and we say, okay, we're going to allow them to, instead of going on a care plan for 36 visits, we're going to allow them to start paying as they go. We're going to allow them to start coming, whatever schedule they want to come at, just to keep them in the office. Now, there is some benefit to getting some level of chiropractic care as opposed to none at all. I get that. I completely get that. But what happens is, when we start compromising our principles, it comes from this lack of integrity. So as opposed to trying to compromise all the time, maybe that's a sign that we need to improve our game. We need to train harder to become better at delivering and getting overall better results and better buy-in from people that were to our office and to receive care. So the lowest level of vision is transactional. We compromise in our system, we compromise in our fees, we compromise in our principles. It's focused on self needs. It's focused on me as opposed to focusing on the problems of people that are coming to see me. To change this, we need to focus on other people's problems and figure out the best way to solve their problems. And remember, pain is not the problem. Pain is not the problem. There is always an underlying problem. So our ability to communicate subluxation and communicate the principle of chiropractic is so vital for us to be able to jump out of this transactional vision. Okay. The next level of vision is what we call relational. Relational vision is that the thinking is I become a good person to serve others. So my focus is now not on me, it's about service of others. And I begin to attract good people into my life because I have a heart of service. My mindset is how can I serve these people in a bigger way? And that can be obviously in the office through chiropractic, but that can be anywhere in your life. It can be volunteering, it can be part of a club, it can be going and donating your time or finances at a homeless shelter. It can be being part of a church, whatever that is. But it's an ability to give without the idea that there's something in return coming back to you. And that's the second level of vision is what we call relational type of vision, where you're building bonds. So you live your life by a set of principles that attracts good people. And when you bring value to the world, there's something called the law of exchange. When you bring more value to the world, the law of exchange naturally will bring value back to you. It's like the window that you give through is equivalent to the window that you receive through. So if you're not making enough money, if you're not seeing enough people, start giving more and watch what happens. It's a universal law that is true across all boards and all principles. The third level of vision is what we call educational. So in other words, educational is there's kind of three levels of educational. I need you to think that I know. That's the first level of educational. So often what happens is, and you guys will recognize this, we get into our office and we start talking to a patient to try to verbally unload our knowledge on that patient to make sure that they know that we know what we're talking about. It's almost a self-validation need. So that's the first level of educational vision. The second level is that I need them to know because this is going to be good for them, right? So I really want you to know this stuff because I know this will help change your life. But the third level is that they need to know so badly that lives and the world will be better when the world understands what I know. So that's what we call educational vision. And this is the whole thinking when we do our doctor's report, because many of us, when we get into, and here's the thing, when you're doing a one-on-one doctor's report or a video doctor's report, it's tough to get into that higher level of transformational vision, which is what we're going to talk about next. You end up staying in this level of education. And a lot of times that can be very helpful to the person. They get a level of education, but rarely do you get them to become a transformational person. They will not become a chiropractic warrior. It's rare that because you all know, you've had those people that have had that transformation. And next thing you know, they're referring their family, they're referring their friends, they're coming to all your events. They're a mainstay in your practice and you've all got them. And it would be great to have a whole practice full of them, but they got the vision. So something that you did or said caused them to be transformed in some way. But what happens is many of us who are going through our processes, some of us never get there at all, but many of us who are going through these processes, we live in the level of education and people start to learn and think, yeah, okay, this is different. This is different than this Western medical model that I grew up with. My thinking has changed a little bit, but it's less than the level of transformation. So that's the third level of vision, is getting to this educational, relational type of vision. Now, dinners are one of the best ways to do that. And I would say for you guys who maybe haven't done dinners, or maybe have not done dinners for a long time, or don't do them on a regular basis, having patient appreciation dinners or community dinners can be a game changer for your practice. And I'm going to tell you, so not just your practice, but you personally, you yourself, by going out with the mindset that I'm just going to go and I'm going to share my love and share my vision with people, and I'm going to give to them by feeding them without the thinking of anything in return, or the expectation of anything in return. I'm just going to go and do this out of the goodness of my heart because I love my community. I love the people that are seeing me. I'm grateful for everything that this community has given to me, that I'm going to go give. And bring your patients out to a patient appreciation dinner and share your vision with them, and share stories, and share an advanced talk, whatever that is. It is transforming for your practice, but more importantly, it's transforming for you. So I can't encourage you that enough. That is really something that takes you from the educational vision to the last level, which is the transformational vision. People get transformed by three things, and that is health, wealth, and relationships. That's where the majority of people want their transformation to happen. So we are experts in the healthcare realm. So you have such an authority on people to help pull them out of this medical model that they've been in, and they have had no, unless they've heard it from somebody, they've had no other communication, they've had no other sign of anybody telling them the whole principle of what we live our lives with, this principle of chiropractic, the beautiful principle that we have. And when they hear that, light bulbs go on. And that's what happens when people get their lives transformed. So the thinking here in transformational is, obviously people require a transformation. Perhaps some of you have had a transformation yourself. Maybe it's been in chiropractic. Maybe it's been going to a seminar and you've heard something that really resonated with you and totally changed your whole paradigm and changed your mindset. And the third is maybe you've seen it happen in your practice already, and it's given you the self-affirmation that, holy smokes, what I do does transform lives. What I do does work. There is a power inside the body. I've seen some incredible healing. I've seen some things happen through my life, through my practice, that there is no doubt in my mind that we live in a principle that works every single time. And letting the people know that principle, and letting them know that you are so confident in that principle, that's the certainty that people are wanting. That's the certainty that people look for. And if you can show that level of certainty, it is life-changing. It is practice-changing. That is the difference between you seeing the number you're seeing now and doubling your practice. It's getting to that level of certainty where you can share that with the world. And so here's the thing, and one thing to realize is that if the world knew, if the world focused and adopted what we know as far as the chiropractic principle, think of how different the world would be. Like when you think about it, if everybody across the world understood what we knew, the economy would be different, our healthcare system would be completely different, the pharmaceutical industry would go bankrupt, relationships would be better, war would not exist. The world could totally change because of this beautiful chiropractic principle that we have. And that's something that I would encourage you guys to really take to heart, is that you have such a power over the lives of people and an influence over their direction in their life. And you have such an ability to change the world in what you do, even if it's one person at a time, in small sections. But the more that you do it, the more that it expands and the more that it exponentially grows. But if we can get back to living in this transformational vision with our success operating system, and not accept failure at all, get rid of all of our old operating system that has been bringing us failure, get rid of all of those things that we talked about that constantly bring us failure, and constantly bring us Groundhog Day type of results, and get out of that and work in the success operating system and work in this transformational vision, the world changes, your world changes, your practice changes, and your results will massively skyrocket.